Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Game of Thrones Winter's Coming. Today we are going to have a video about a question I've been getting a few times now regarding the rebuild leaders and the damage due to rebuild leaders. One of the reasons to why I've been asked this is because people feel like it can be quite a difference in terms of the damage output, and we have an example here where you can see I dealt 54%, 0.37, and in another one I dealt the exact same, almost same lineup and everything, but then on the third one I dealt roughly 3% more, even though it's set up, everything is the same, nothing has been changed, and people wonder how that can be such a huge difference in the damage output that you're doing to the rebuilds. And in this video we're going to take a look at some of the things that could be the reasons to why it's having or fluctuating as much as it is. One of the more unknown aspects in terms of Game of Thrones when it comes to damage is that there are hidden modifiers everywhere that are difficult to either see through or to kind of put into an equation so you get an idea about how they function. As you can see, we have on the commanders the general command attributes, but if you click the button here then you get a much more detailed overview of the commander, what it has in terms of attack, health, skill effect, stuff like that, which all kind of get together and is randomized on every commander based on whatever equipment they have and what base stats they have. And when you look at the button, then you can see that there is a stat called critical, and as the description says, it's the troop's ability to critical hit when attacking. And supposedly this stat also is applied when fighting against rebuild leaders, and because of that we have an idea that there is an unknown variable that makes them crit against rebuild leaders. But as the stat suggests, we can see 121, but we don't really know what that means. Does it mean that every 121 shots that there will be a critical hit, or does it mean that the critical hit will do 121 extra damage, stuff like that? We can't really know how it's applied inside the actual game, but it's there, which means that there is a randomization happening where the game basically dictates if the hit's going to be a critical hit or not a critical hit, which will most likely result in either a lower or higher damage output. And if you're lucky, you might have more critical hits when hitting a rebuild leader, which might cause the what's it called, the damage to fluctuate up and down and not be the same every single time. Another thing or reason to why the damage is different per hit is also because of certain commander skills. In this case we are looking at Enzo. We can see one of his side abilities is that for each 1% health lost, Enzo's attack increases by 1%, which is super simple. It doesn't say how many times it procs, it doesn't say if it can be stacked, it doesn't say anything, it just says it's there, so people just use it in that regard. So they try to keep him either at low health or get him to low health, heal him up, and then get him to low health constantly to try and reapply the buff. I'm not sure if that's actually working that way or if there's a certain timer bound to it, but either way it's there. And of course, let's say he gets an early crit early on, then his attack will be less high, while his crit will deal less damage. But if, let's say, if he gets it later on where his health lower, then his crit will also deal more damage, so he will automatically deal more damage, which means that his first crit and second crit will have a huge difference in terms of damage output because of how the crit system works in this game. A different scenario would be, for example, Lario. You can see that one of his side abilities is that when his health falls below 40%, then each attack he takes away 301 attack from the enemy, and which means that at some point, for example, enemies will deal no damage, and since he takes away, it would assume that he gets that attack on top of him. And because of that, there are situations where the damage applied fluctuates because of the skills the commanders have, and makes it more difficult because the crits also interfere among those stats. So right now you have commanders that might deal a lot more damage in certain scenarios and a lot less damage than in other scenarios because the crits came later, or because the buffs are applied differently, or something changes in that lineup in that one time. So there are certain things, but we will also take a look at the last thing before continuing. Lastly, at the end of this video, you saw it as well before, if you notice it, that the damage values are not the same for each hit from each commander. They differentiate. So it does indicate that when the commanders do damage, that they have a minimum amount of damage and a maximum amount of damage that they have to get assigned a number in between when dealing damage. So let's say that a commander has a minimum damage amount of 5 and a maximum damage amount of 10 damage per hit, then the commander for each hit will be assigned a value between 5 and 10, and based on that, it means for each hit that sometimes he will do 7 damage, sometimes he will do 6 damage, and these kind of things will also make it so that the Rebel leaders might actually have different damage values for each hit. And one thing you also can notice is that, for example, when you have Mountain Clan set on, that there is an expedition damage increased by 15%. It's not explained how the expedition damage is, but if it's what I believe it is, then if we have, for example, 100% expedition damage increase, then the commander, instead of having a value between 5 and 10, the commander might end up having a value with 100% increase between 10 and 20, which means that the commander can end up hitting sometimes 11 damage, sometimes 17 damage, which broadens the value of damage that the commander can do against the Rebel leaders. And if this happens enough times, then sometimes you might have a lot of low rolls where he only deals 11 and 12 damage per hit, and other times you might have 17 and 18 damage per hit. And already there you can hear that there is a huge difference between having 22 damage from 2 hits and 34 damage from 2 hits. And there are a lot of numbers that are going in when calculating Rebel damage, and it's a really complex system, and it can really matter. My personal opinion is try to make setups that give you either a certain guaranteed 2-hit or 3-hit on Rebel leaders, just because the damage fluctuates so much. And if you get above 45% per hit, Rebel leader hit, then you can usually 2-hit them. But in some cases you might even have to go up to 74 or 48% per hit to actually 2-hit them. But I hope you liked the video. It helped you understand a little bit about why the numbers are randomized against Rebel leaders a bit. Yeah, comment if you want to, subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you want to play the game, the link is down in the description below, and so it is for the Game of Thrones Winners Comics Discord group. And yeah, I hope you all have a great weekend, have a great time, and see you all next week. Bye bye!